Vampuer, the bloody journals. Control the Heart, an audio podcast series. The Prologue. In the twilight of human history, the world was forever changed. Vampires, once whispered about in the shadows, now walked openly among us. Their hunger, a curse in ancient myths, had become a reality, one humanity could no longer ignore. But after centuries of war, fear, and bloodshed, the unthinkable happened: peace. It was forged in the fires of desperation and hope by the Vampuer estate, the oldest and most powerful of the vampire dynasties, and so came the historic treaty. A delicate promise signed by both species that granted the undead equal rights. A truce that redefined not just society, but what it meant to be human, or vampire. At first, the world marveled at this new order. Vampires, with their unnatural grace and eternal lives, lived openly among us. Schools, governments, even places of worship struggled to adapt. In the shadows of glittering cities, humans and vampires alike wrestled with what this new age meant for themselves, for their families, for their souls. But while peace appeared to flourish on the surface, beneath, darker currents churned. Sinister forces stirred in the depths of both vampire and human society, forces that threatened to tear this fragile harmony apart. Forces determined to ignite old hatreds and new fears. The sound of pages turning, slow and deliberate, echoes through the background as if we're stepping into the past. The bloody journals, they called them. A collection of stories written in ink and blood, passed down through the centuries. These are not tales of glory or heroism. No, these are the unflinching truths, harsh, brutal accounts of betrayal, loss, vengeance, and more, from both sides. And as each story unfolds, the lines between good and evil blur. The boundaries between life and death crumble. The very essence of humanity and what it means to be undead is questioned. In these pages, you will discover the hidden scars of this world. You will learn that peace is as fragile as a heartbeat and just as easily silenced. The sound of a heartbeat echoes briefly in the distance. The soft, natural sounds of dawn breaking over a small town, birds chirping, a distant rooster crowing, and the faint rustle of wind through the trees. Hint of calm, but something off beneath it. The tone is peaceful yet slightly eerie, as if something lies beneath the quiet. It's dawn in Carver, South Carolina, a town where the streets are lined with old oaks and every neighbor knows each other by name. For years, life here had a rhythm, a slow, predictable pulse where nothing much changed. But lately, something has shifted in Carver. Something strange is stirring. The sound of the wind picking up, a soft creak of an old wooden sign swinging in the breeze, adding to the feeling of unease. They say Carver is the kind of town that knows how to keep secrets. Maybe that's why Heart Labs, one of the most secretive research facilities in the country, decided to set up shop right on the outskirts of town. Heart Labs came quietly, setting up their pristine, state-of-the-art building like an outsider who knew exactly what they were getting into. The locals didn't ask questions. They never do. After all, keeping quiet is in their blood. But silence has a cost. And lately, strange things have been happening to the people of Carver, subtle at first, nights that seem too long, strange faces that don't belong. And then, there's been the rise of the vampires. The distant sound of a door creaking open, then closing, as if someone is watching from the shadows. Vampires have always been part of the town's quiet history, living up in the hills, away from the rest. They've never caused trouble, until now. Over the past few months, There's been an influx of new vampires, more than anyone can remember. They've come in from other places, drawn to Carver like moths to a flame, and no one seems to know why. Some say it's a coincidence. Others, like Phoebe, think it's by design. The sound of a microphone clicking on, followed by the faint hum of static as if a podcast is starting. Phoebe's voice cuts through the static of the early morning, drawn-out suspense. She's the voice of the town, though she doesn't claim to speak for everyone, just for those who are listening. For weeks now, her podcast has been the lifeline to the truth, at least the version of truth no one else is willing to talk about. She's not just another podcaster trying to stir the pot. Phoebe is digging deeper into the mystery of Heart Labs, into the strange behaviors sweeping the town, and the vampires who seem to be growing more powerful by the day. In her latest episode, Phoebe doesn't mince words. She's frustrated, suspicious, and determined to uncover what's really going on. Her voice echoes across the airwaves in that same calm, persistent tone that makes her listeners lean in just a little closer. She tells her audience that Heart Labs might not be what it seems, that Carver, this peaceful little town, may have been chosen for reasons much darker than anyone wants to believe, and that the rising vampire population, it's no accident. It's all connected, she says. Phoebe's convinced there's something larger at play, something sinister, and she's not going to stop until she gets answers. But Phoebe knows better than to trust too easily. Carver has always been a place where secrets fester just beneath the surface. And no one, not the town's council, not Heart Labs, not even the vampires, can be trusted completely. As Phoebe's podcast comes to a close, she leaves her audience with a parting thought. A warning. We are in control, she says, slow and cryptic. A cryptic message, no doubt, but one her listeners understand all too well. Play your part, she tells them, because in this town, everyone has a role to play. And in a place like Carver, the only thing more dangerous than asking too many questions is having all the answers. Vampuer, the Bloody Journals. Control the Heart, an audio podcast series. The Prologue,